Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick King, and I'm the Sustainable Households Manager here at Urban Green Lab, and you are here for another episode of Sustainable Nashville Live. The purpose of this series is to open a dialogue with the public and those sustainability change makers in and around Nashville that are doing some really great work. And in that regard, today I'm here with Alexa Pegas.
Pegues.
Pegues. I just talked about it and I knew I was going to say it wrong. I'm so sorry.
You're close.
Alexa is the Communications and Administrative Coordinator for Compost Nashville. Woo. Now, before we begin, I would like to remind everyone that Urban Green Lab is a nonprofit. And if you feel so inclined, you can make a donation on our website at www.urbangreenlab.org. Or you can text Team UGL, just one word, to 44321 to get a donation link sent to your phone. You can make a donation that way. So first up, Alexa, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you? Well, good, all things considered.
Yeah. I feel like anytime you ask someone that question in the past 4 months, it's always like an asterisk next to it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Little star, little asterisk.
Yeah, little star, little asterisk. So next up, could you tell us about Compost Nashville and their mission? And you know what, since we're going to be talking primarily about compost today, maybe if you can just give a general definition of exactly what compost is.
Sure. So compost is when you take all your food scraps, paper scraps, items that can break back down into the earth. Composting is the process of taking all those items, breaking them back down into usable soil for then returning to the earth, growing plants, growing gardens. It's a sort of recycling for food is a good way to think about it. So Compost Nashville, we've been around since 2014. And started out with just a truck and a couple of people, and we have since evolved into servicing over 1,000 homes and businesses here in Nashville. So that's pretty exciting. Thank you very much. And we are a compost collection service. So what that means is we do, for houses, for residential, we do weekly compost pickups. Where we will drop off a 4-gallon bin that you can then fill up with all that compostable material. And once a week we come by, we pick it up. If you're a business, it can be 2 times a week. And that's us. We keep collecting compost throughout this pandemic. So it's an exciting and strange time.
Oh yeah, I can imagine so. And how did the company get started? Like, what was the idea behind Compost Nashville?
Residential and commercial pickup services sort of across the nation have definitely been increasing over the past, let's say, 10 to 15 years. Especially in the last 5 years, I think a lot of people have been introduced to the idea of composting for the first time. You sort of start with recycling and then you wonder what's the next step in sort of decreasing my contribution to landfill. And for a lot of people, that next step is composting. So Nashville didn't have a compost pickup service. And one of the really nice things about compost pickup is it makes composting easier. It makes composting more accessible, especially for people who live in apartments, who don't have necessarily the space to compost, people who might not have the ability to compost. Compost pickup is a great way to fill that need. And Nashville didn't have a pickup service, so that's where the idea started. And then we grew from there, especially in the last year. We've just seen so much awareness about composting increasing. It's been really amazing.
That is awesome. And, full disclosure to the viewers, I compost at home, but I'm lucky enough to have a backyard where I can fit an 88-gallon drum that I spin every week, but love composting.
Yeah. And we love, backyard composting, vermicomposting with a worm bin in your house, any way you can compost, we're here for it. We try and be a resource for all those different kinds of composting because it's definitely not a one size fits all idea, I would say.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So generally speaking, about how much food waste do you all divert from landfills and turn into compost in an average-ish year, if you can answer that?
So that number is evolving a lot. Each year we have it's been growing exponentially each year, which is so exciting. And we actually just announced and just passed the 4 million pounds diverted mark, which is so exciting. That's 2,000 tons, I think, of compostable material. I think I just wrote this up for our newsletter.
Okay.
So that's just a ton of material since 2014. I mean, it started out, you have a few hundred pounds diverted, a few thousand pounds diverted. And then last year, I think we had just under 1.5 million pounds in 2019 that we diverted from landfill, which the reason why that's important for anyone who might not know is when food matter, compostable material goes into a landfill, it can't break down properly. It's an anaerobic condition. So it ends up releasing methane, which is bad news, bad news greenhouse gas. So when you instead divert that material and have it breaking down and processed into compost soil, you're removing all of that greenhouse gas that would have been released into that atmosphere. All of that is being taken out of the equation. So yeah, we're thrilled to have sort of passed that 4 million pound mark. That's huge for us. So
that is amazing. And I'm not sure if it's 20 tons times 200. My math brain is not working right now, so we will definitely just take your word for it. But 4 million pounds. 4 million.
No. Someone check me on that. Let me know.
Okay. Is it 4 million pounds or 4 million tons?
Oh, 4 million pounds.
Okay. All right. It's getting a little carried away. Yeah, that's not nothing.
4 million tons one day, that's eventually.
Yeah. We're heading in that direction right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, methane is a gas that is many more times harmful to the atmosphere than carbon dioxide. All right. Our next question is, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Nashville?
Sure. So I have been in Nashville for a few years now. I moved here from New Orleans. And actually my move up here sort of coincided with my own personal discovery of low waste living. At the time, what I was calling zero waste living, but now I think low waste is a little bit sort of lowers the barrier to entry, a little less intimidating for that sort of lifestyle, for looking to decrease your contribution to landfill and all that. So that sort of personal journey for me was happening at the same time when I moved up here to Nashville. And I was working somewhere that didn't have a recycling program, and I started sort of my own makeshift recycling program there while I was taking my team's recycling, sorting it, washing it out if need be, taking all the steps to recycle that. And from there, I became the sort of go-to person for, can this be recycled? And what about this? And what about this? And becoming that person is what led to me spending a lot of my free time researching this stuff. And that is actually what led me to Compost Nashville, sort of realizing the nuances, sort of complications of recycling, and looking for, okay, well, what's the next step?
Mm-hmm.
What's another option for items that maybe can't be recycled or reused or repurposed? And that led me to composting.
That is awesome. A lot of parallels between the story you just said and my own personal experience
Yeah.
as someone who moved to Nashville from New Orleans 3 years ago, and was also that person who was taking my coworkers recycling, wrenching out their glass recycling, all that stuff. It's just like a snowball effect, essentially.
Yeah, it's interesting. Must
Yeah,
be something in the water in New Orleans that
something. It must be something. And how long have you been with Compost Nashville?
So I have been with Compost Nashville a little over a year. And before that, I was a very enthusiastic Compost Nashville customer. So
that's,
yeah.
that's great. And I guess this next question kind of just goes with the answer you just provided. But how did you get interested in sustainability?
Sort of the similar thing, similar to what I was just talking about. It was actually, and this is going to sound a little basic, but it was definitely, it was Instagram that
Okay.
that tipped me off to the fact that the coffee cup I was getting every day, the just single-use disposable coffee cup I was getting every day, was adding up, wasn't going away. I think, I saw one of those amazing people who I am not quite there yet, but the people who can, keep their trash in the jar. And I know
Mhm.
that's a big sort of entryway for a lot of people into low waste and zero waste. And yeah, and there's that. I also, growing up, I was lucky in that my mom set the example of bringing our own bags to the grocery store.
Mhm.
So I had that in my brain already, which I'm grateful for. Of course, when you're a kid, you're like weirdly embarrassed by everything that your parents do. So at the time, I remember being like, why do we have to bring our bags? And now, of course, I'm the person that brings their bags. So
Yeah. 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 It's funny how much your parents can have a big impact on specifically sustainability in your future.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think, one of the nice things about the internet nowadays is you don't necessarily have to have had like the influence from your parents now to discover and learn more about sustainability. So that's really nice, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Okay. Now let's say I am a banana peel,
Okay.
and I just got placed into my Compost Nashville bin.
Sure.
Can you walk me through the process from me being a banana peel in the bin next to my front door, and in with me turning into a rich soil nutrient additive? Yes, there we
A
go.
bit like this.
Yes, a bin like that.
Sure. So the way our service works, you add your banana peel to said bin, and any number of other materials, shredded paper, uh, coffee grounds, all that good stuff, and your banana peel, which
Hmm.
is a great source of nitrogen for your compost.
Yes.
so, um, so you place that out. You place it outside your door, out by the mailbox, in the lobby of your apartment building, what have you. And then we swing by and we pick up your bin, swap it out for a new clean bin, something that we've been focusing a lot on during this, coronavirus situation. We do clean and sanitize each bin between uses.
Hmm.
So we take your bin and we bring it out to the compost processing facility, which is in Ashland City.
Okay.
And the way that facility processes the compost is through different piles in different stages.
Hmm.
So when you dump out something from your compost bin, it looks just like the way you did when you put it in. So you have this sort of fresh pile and it's got all of that material lumped in. And then the process of composting is exposing all of that material to the elements, to air, to the sun. It's breaking down over that time, breaking down naturally with all of the substance around it. Each separate pile is in a different stage of decomposition. And then slowly through turning the compost pile, through aeration, through exposure to the elements, all of that material then breaks down after, and it's been screened out for any potential accidentally placed items in there. So it's screened compost. You end up with a final pile of compost. And that compost soil is rich in all sorts of nutrients. It's, taken everything from from the banana peel.
Yes.
And it's broken down into a compost soil or a compost soil amendment that you can then add to your garden, to your farm, to your indoor plants, to whatever you like. And all of those nutrients then soak down, and the plants and the vegetables and everything gets to eat up those delicious nutrients that were once part of your banana peel. And then you get to eat that food. So that's sort of the circle of life, the compost circle of life.
Okay, that was a beautiful story.
I feel like I was illustrating the compost piles in my house.
Yeah. Well, that and the compost circle of life, you just really brought it back. So at one point you said during that process it's like screen for things that can't be composted, I suppose. Is contamination a big issue for you all?
I wouldn't say it's a big issue. It happens sometimes, and that's just how it goes. Sometimes a little bit of plastic gets in there accidentally. Fruit stickers are a sneaky, non-compostable item that makes it in there a lot. And I'm sure people who do home composting as well find that to be the case.
Yes, it's a big pain in the butt.
They're sneaky.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I would say the main sort of contamination issue we would have is items labeled as biodegradable or items that you think may be compostable, and which are not, in fact, compostable at all. And I'd be happy to elaborate on that.
I was just going to say, Alexa, would you mind just going ahead and elaborating on what's the difference between compostable and biodegradable?
Absolutely. So for the purposes of composting, the biodegradable label is meaningless to our industry. Biodegradable usually means it will break down eventually. That is most things. Most things are biodegradable. But I guess I used the wrong term. Instead of breaking down, it actually breaks up into smaller and smaller pieces. So we see this frequently with plastic bags, with plasticware, like knives, forks, spoons, coffee cups as well. And being labeled biodegradable, it can't go in your bin. That doesn't meet the standards we need. Now, being labeled specifically compostable is perfect. So it will need to be a BPI certified compostable item in order to go into your bin. And for the most part, that will be on the item itself. So if you have a compostable fork, you may see like a little script on it that says compostable. It might say BPI in the top corner. And that's how we know it can go in your bin. Those items that are 100% compostable will break down with the compostable material around it in the same time frame as the material around it. And it leaves no plastic residue, which is the most important part, probably.
Yeah.
So that would be the difference. So in terms of putting something in your compost bin, it does need to be labeled compostable. Biodegradable means nothing to us, but there's that. And I would also say that specifically those certified compostable bioplastics do usually need to go to a commercial composter. For the most part, they do not break down in a backyard compost pile. Just doesn't get hot enough.
Yes.
So we can take those, but if you're doing at home vermicomposting, anything like that, you're probably going to want to keep those items out of your bin. And if you can't compost them, then you'll need to put them in the trash because they can't be recycled with traditional plastics.
Okay. It's a very succinct explanation. Thank you. So my next question here is, are there any misconceptions that people have about Compost Nashville? And what do you want Nashville to know about Compost Nashville?
Sure. I have misconceptions. I think compost in general can sometimes get a bad rap for, people think compost is smelly or compost is gross. And a properly maintained compost pile at home won't be smelly or gross. It gets a kind of earthy tone to it. And to get that right balance, you want to make sure you've got your right nitrogen sources and carbon sources. So you want green material and brown material. There are a lot of good resources online for you to do a little more research on that if you want to. And then for the sake of our bins, the reason we do weekly pickups is to keep any threat of possibly smelly material, anything like that, to a minimum. For the most part, your compost bin won't smell. Sometimes you may have like a bit of kale at the back of the fridge that you forgot about, and then you throw it in your compost bin 4 days before pickup, and sometimes that will smell. But the good news is your compost bin lid will snap on completely, and that cuts the odor. So smell's not an issue, and I know that's definitely a concern for a lot of people who are first learning about composting, first getting into composting. And the good news is your actual kitchen trash can, your actual landfill-based trash will smell less because you won't have any food material in there, and you can take it out to the curb less, which is nice.
Okay. Yeah. I have been composting. I'm sorry to just go on a small tangent, but I've been composting at home for about 2 years, and in that time, maybe once every 3 months, I take my trash can out. So you're definitely correct there.
It's great. It really, I think the official EPA percentage is that compostable material makes up 30%-ish of our landfill-based material. But I think from a personal level, if you're working on cutting down waste, you'll find that compostable material can make up a lot more of your waste.
Yeah.
If you're cutting down on, packaging and all those other things, when you're looking at your own personal contributions to waste, then I think you'll find food waste is a big chunk of it. And once that's being diverted to compost, it's this much trash, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Next question. How has COVID impacted Compost Nashville's work?
Sure. So there's definitely, as with every, I think, small business in Nashville, small or large business in Nashville, we've definitely had an impact. I would say the largest impact, of course, would be coming from our commercial side. Just understandably, on a restaurant or office level, if people are working at home or people are only doing takeout, that demand sort of decreases. But on the positive side, we've actually seen an increase on our residential side, because once everybody starts cooking at home all the time and making 3 meals a day at home, you start to realize how much material, how much food scrap material, how much compostable material you're actually throwing away on a daily basis. And even for our customers who are already composting, we have people going up to 2 or 3 bins a week instead of the usual 1, just because they're producing more compostable material just from cooking at home more. So that's pretty exciting. I know. Yeah. I know I get tired of making food, all day, every day. But what I like to think of it as is when you get to Friday and you're tired of making food all week, you can order a pizza and you can compost the pizza box as well.
Yes,
So
you can. Yes, you can.
yeah, so it's good. It's good news there.
Okay. And got only two more questions for you here. What is one question you hear often and you wish everyone knew the answer to?
Hmm. We do. So, I mean, we constantly get like, is this compostable? I don't
Hmm.
know if I could choose that as like a blanket question.
You absolutely can.
We have some great resources on our website online. We have a list, a pretty comprehensive list of what can and can't go in your Compost Nashville bin. And when you sign up, you'll also get like a fridge magnet that has a very helpful list on it.
Hmm.
So there's that. And to throw back to the biodegradable versus compostable material thing, I wish we're working on it, but I do wish there was a little more education on that specific issue because it is something we encounter pretty frequently. So that would probably be the question I wish everyone already knew the answer to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say an easy answer to that question, and this is one that I live by, is if it was once alive, it can be composted?
Yes. Yes. I mean, that's
Okay.
a very good rule of thumb. I was trying to
Okay.
think, only with the exception of, I mean, even bioplastics are made out of, corn and stuff like that. So, yeah, if it came from the earth, it can return to the earth.
Excellent. For a second, I was like, have I been composting wrong the entire time? Oh,
No.
goodness.
No, I was just trying to think, like, is there an exception? But you're right. You're right.
Okay. Yeah. And last question we have here. Urban Green Lab has recently launched a campaign called Find Your Lab, which encourages everyone to explore sustainable living and create a lab of learning in their own life. Can you tell us what you're currently working on and to personally be more sustainable? There we go.
Sure. That is actually perfect timing because we have just started Plastic Free July, which
Okay.
is a thing some people might be familiar with. And Plastic Free July is sort of a international movement where people like evaluate their own single-use plastic waste, plastic use, and see where they can reduce that, switch old habits to something new, something more sustainable. And I've been doing Plastic Free July for the past 3 years, I think.
Okay.
And it's always, I try not to, get too in my head about it and concerned with cutting out absolutely all plastic because you can drive yourself crazy that way.
Yeah.
And as an explainer, the problem with plastic being that it lives forever and ever and ever in landfill, and so many of our single-use plastic items we use, like a straw or plastic bag or plastic cup, we use once and we throw away, piles up. So that's why Plastic Free July started. And this year, I think it's going to be really interesting. I was thinking about this earlier, actually, because of everything that's going on with coronavirus. A lot of coffee shops where you would normally bring your own mug, you can't necessarily bring your own mug or your own thermos anymore for safety reasons, for very good safety reasons. So this is kind of an opportunity to get a little more creative and see, if that's something that I've focused on in the past, bringing my own coffee mug to get coffee in the morning, what's something I can focus on this year to meet the sort of new expectations of coronavirus. So I think it's going to be it'll be a different challenge this year, but still pretty fun. So,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm doing.
Excellent. Okay. Plastic Free July. Here, I see you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sweet. Thanks, Alexa.
Thank you.
If viewers have any additional questions or want to get involved, how can they reach you?
Sure. So you can hit us up on social media. We're at Compost Nashville across the board. And you can find us there. If you have specific questions, you can send us a DM, or if you prefer, you can always email us at info at compostnashville.org, and you can reach us pretty fast there as well.
Excellent. And before we wrap up, are there any events or things you want to plug?
Just no real events on the horizon for us. Our role in events is very often being the composting service, so we don't have a lot of that going on. But yeah, we do have right now. You can add, if you're a residential service, you can add a second bin for just $5 extra a month. For those of you that are cooking at home more and want to increase service, so that's a cool little thing we're doing right now.
Sweet. Well, thanks for your pluggables. Next week, we'll be interviewing Seema Prasad, the owner of Meal, the restaurant Meal. And if you have any questions for Seema or any recommendations on an organization that you would like to learn more about, feel free to email me. My email address is patrick@urbangreenlab.org. And until next time, remember to live sustainably.